So we're going to talk this week about genetics and learning. And so we will start with the age-old question, nature versus nurture. So how much of our behavior is nature? How much of that is genetically based from our parents, from the information on our genes, and how much of that is from the environmental influences, which might also be your parents and their influence on you, along with the environment you live in. So big question. So organismal or genetic influences, we're going to talk about genotypes and phenotypes. Those are basic bio questions, and we're not going to go into a lot of detail, but I do want you to know the genotype is actually the information that is on your chromosomes in the form of genes. What does that information actually say? So what type of DNA do you have for these different things? Now, phenotype is what's actually being expressed. And the idea behind this is what's showing up, whether it is a physical characteristic like the color of your hair, or is it a behavioral characteristic? And obviously we're gonna focus on the behaviors. All right, so nature versus nurture. Again, there are approximate versus ultimate questions. Tinbergen pointed out, how do genes determine behaviors? And then what extent is behavior is under genetic control? And to take that one further, then can you alter that? There's been studies on prisoners. You know, are you born bad? You know, too much testosterone was a thing one time. Having to be a male, you are typically XY chromosomes, 2 X's is female, and there are some who are have actually 3 copies, an extra chromosome, which would be XYY. And there was a study that suggested that these people were born to end up in prison. And later that study was actually thrown out, and it was proven wrong. So so that is a question, is really, you know, how much is ingrained in us, and then how much is actually affected by the environment. And so let's just go back to something we've already talked about last week in learning and genetic control. I want to take it just a little step further. Well, our genes, our DNA, what they'll do is make proteins, and those proteins then can act as hormones or other things, and that will affect our behavior. And then we have the word innate, and we want to make sure you understand that term. It means inborn, that there is a genetic basis. You are born with this innate behavior, something you are born with. And again, Tinbergen did the FAP, if you remember what that stands for. Hopefully you do. But again, that was fixed action pattern. And then we talked about, you know, what those fish were looking for. And in his 48 study, here's a stickleback fish. And what he wanted to do was see what did they react to. And what happens is the males get reddish underneath. And it turned out all of these were triggers for this fish as a rival. So as long as they kind of had an eye on it, and the red on the bottom would trigger it. So the shape of the fish itself was not as important maybe as that color pattern. And then just to make sure that you understand that environment can also affect that, we have these MAPs, which are modal action patterns. Again, what this does is it actually takes a fixed action pattern and it changes that due to experience. And we talked about every warbler is born with the idea of what their song should be. But then that becomes more modified as they get experience. And the more experienced males, the one with the bigger repertoire of songs and sounds, are typically the ones that get the females quicker. And so that's it. That's what we're going to stop with on this very short video. And so we will stop the recording.